It's the Disneyland with Kids podcast, bringing you travel tips, park tidbits, and the best Southern California travel deals. Welcome to the Disneyland with Kids podcast. I'm Becca from This Crazy Adventure Called Life.
And I'm Jessica from the happiest blog on earth.
We talk strategy a lot, you and I do. That's one of the main services that you offer is park strategies. But two, because there are park strategies out there that people have put out for so long that they're almost like canon now. People think that it's hard and true and like you have to follow those things, those strategies, and things have changed. Times have changed. Disneyland has changed. Disneyland will never stop, growing and changing. So let's talk about unpopular ones that kind of contradict those or that other people would think, oh my gosh, that's kind of crazy. But you and I have tested them and we know they work.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this would be really fun and it would help our listeners and viewers have a better experience. And so I am going to start with one, and I'll see if I'll get your reaction after. So my biggest pet peeve is people telling people that they need to arrive at the parks over an hour before park opening. I absolutely hate that. Or that they need to be there at 7 o'clock, and when the park opens at 8, because it's like you're just going to stand in line. You're going to stand in line for security, wait for it to open, and it moves slowly when it first opens. Then you're going to stand and wait for the gates to open, and it's going to move slowly, and then you're going to stand and wait for the rope. So now you've done over an hour of standing, and you have done that to your feet. And maybe it doesn't matter to you at the beginning of the day, but at the end of the day, that extra hour of standing on cement, nonetheless, in one spot most of the time, is going to do something to your feet that you're not going to enjoy. Whereas I tend to, when I'm staying at a walking distance hotel, let's say the park opens at 8, I leave at 7:30 from my hotel. I'm through security before 7:45. I'm through the gates, and I'm really only a few people back from the people that have been there since 7 a.m. as far as behind the ropes. There'll be like two rows of people ahead of me a lot of times. So obviously during busier seasons that can change. So what are your thoughts on rope drop? Are you still telling people that they should get there 45 minutes to an hour early? Like obviously if you have to park, that's a different story. But as far as those walking from those popular Harbor Boulevard walking distance hotels.
Yeah. Okay. So your strategy, I've done it with you and it's perfect. It totally works. But I also want to give like contrasting opinion a little bit. So first you asked me, am I still giving the advice of doing 45 minutes to an hour? I have shortened it to 45 minutes to 30 minutes because I'm one of those telling people like it starts at 5:30 when it really starts at 6, like that kind of thing. And when we've done ours and when you do it with your kids and your family, it's a well-oiled machine. Sometimes with people traveling and people that don't do Disneyland as much, 2 minutes turns into 10 minutes, turns into whatever. So you do have to know your group, your family, the size, the dynamic, and stuff like that. But what you said absolutely does work. And also, the reason why we can also shorten this morning arrival time is because Disney has actually been really consistent with when they open parking, when they open security, and that has
and having more security. Nice. Yeah, it's really nice. And they've had a lot more security. So there's a lot more lanes open.
So they've been consistently opening the parking an hour before. They've been opening security at 7:15 if the park's open at 8. And I think I know they have wanted to discourage people from lining up so early, and it's worked. And I think the entrance process is getting faster, and they keep fine-tuning things where they need to, and I think it's doing great.
I do too. On the contrast side, though, don't show up right when the park opens. Like if the
Mhm.
posted opening time is 8 o'clock, do not show up at security at 8 o'clock because a lot of people do that. So
Yeah.
that's an exclusive you get when you're in planning groups or you follow us or you're inside Disneyland Kids is we'll say you need to be there before 8 because I have gone where I walk through at 8 and those lines are back up because you get all those people that show up at the posted opening because other theme parks do kind of work that way where they don't open
Yes.
anything until posted opening. But Disneyland and Walt Disney World, they open their security early. So don't show up right at 8. Show up. You want to be in line for security at least 15 minutes before park opening so that
Mhm.
you can avoid those crowds. Okay, so you give me an opinion you have as far as strategies that differs from what you see, like maybe a starting ride or something like that that people say to ride first and you're like, "No, don't do that."
There's so many of them, and that's one of the reasons why I continue to test my strategies. Also with first rides, there's also a lot of first rides that are right, but I would say don't do Space Mountain first or Indiana Jones.
Ooh, okay, that Indiana Jones one kinda
Okay.
threw me there a
Let's
little
debate it.
bit. I agree with Space Mountain because it's so far back and a lot of times it's not open at park opening. It's one and I guess that's probably why you're saying for Indiana Jones too.
Yeah.
That I totally agree with that because it is a little setback, and then if you get there and it's closed and usually the line goes like, it builds up quick too, especially
Mhm.
now that early entry is every single day for on-site guests, but yeah, I 100% agree with the Space Mountain. I think Indy's I still go that way and maybe I'll hop on Indy first, but usually I do Jungle Cruise to make sure Indy's open and then
Mhm.
like I'll walk that way if I'm doing that side. Um, but yeah, I totally agree with Space Mountain. I'm not sure if I 100% agree with Indy. Um,
Yeah. It's less commitment, so if you are wanting to do Indiana Jones and you get over there and it's not open, it's not as big of a shift change,
yeah,
but,
exactly.
I have done some research where I tracked which rides opened on time for multiple months at a time each day. I need to pull it out. It was during when early entry first came back,
Yeah.
and I have, like, the top contenders that don't open on time, and that is
Space
Space
Mountain,
Mountain,
Indiana
Indiana
Jones,
Jones,
Big Thunder,
Big Thunder, I don't think was, but
but it's
that does
starting to be
happen a lot
down a
then,
lot lately.
at California Adventure, Incredicoaster, and Radiator Springs. So, once we shift over to the other park, that's another strategies, like, I'd say don't rope drop Radiator Springs
Yeah.
because
Don't
a lot of times it's not open.
yeah, it isn't a lot of times. Over on Disneyland, as far as Fantasyland though, I don't suggest rope dropping Peter Pan. One, especially now that early entry is going on, you have the
Mhm.
on-site guests that can hop in there 5 minutes before rope
Yeah.
drop and build that lineup. But it is also one in Fantasyland that isn't always open on time,
Yes.
and that line gets 30, 40 minutes, and while it might save you a little bit in that line, now you've lost out on all those other rides that will just be walk on.
Yes.
And so it's like, is it worth it to give up all those other rides where you could walk on and get them done within an hour, hour and a half to just save 10, 15 minutes on Peter Pan? And to me, it's not.
Right.
I'll find a different time during the day that it's
Mhm.
lower or that I'm willing to wait,
Mhm.
you know?
So, let's talk about when you should do Peter Pan then, okay? Because you just said when it's lower during the day. So, 2 points that Becca made. One is that if you rope drop Peter Pan and say you wait 20 minutes or 15 minutes, you could have already gone on Snow White, Pinocchio, um, Mr. Toad. I mean, really do any combination of 3 rides in Fantasyland right there, you could have done in the time that you did Peter Pan. And later in the day, those attractions will not be lower, but Peter Pan will remain generally 40 minutes throughout the day. So that's just, reiterating what Becca said. But when is it okay to rope drop Peter Pan? Well, there's still situations that it's okay, but generally, Becca and I both agree that we don't rope drop Peter Pan. I would say it's okay to do if you're a small group of adults only. I would say if you have your 5th day free Disneyland tickets, and we'll talk about how to get those, but and this is not your only rope drop day.
Yes.
Rope drop Peter Pan, try it. If you really, really, really love Peter Pan and you just want to kick off your vacation that way, rope drop Peter Pan. It's fine. Riding it later in the day, but not in peak afternoon when the line's in the sunshine.
Yeah.
I
The
don't
only
love.
exception to that, I think,
Okay.
though, is during Magic Happens parade. So right now we have Magic Happens that happens in the mid-afternoon,
Mm-hmm.
3:30, something
Mm-hmm.
like that. And so I think during that you'll find lower crowds.
Cool.
It will be peak sun, so it will be hot,
Mm-hmm.
but you'll find lower crowds because a lot of people shift over, especially if they know they're going to want to leave by dinner time because their kids won't make it that long. That's a very popular time for younger families to watch the Magic Happens parade. So it's a great time to possibly find a shorter line there. But in
Okay.
general, yeah, the peak afternoon, no go.
Okay, another park strategy that I don't like with regards to Peter Pan is waiting till right after fireworks when the fire marshal clears it, because it feels like there's always, they won't form a line, but people will form some kind of glob of a line. And then when it opens, it's just like free for all. And you also don't know, like, what specific time it's gonna open. Like, if
Yeah.
fireworks are at 9:30, it could open at 10, it could open at 10:15 because it's dependent upon the fire marshal clearing the space, and it's just really, not very dependable. And even waiting, like, right before park close, if you're a night owl, I've never seen it, like, drop that much where it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's as chaotic as if you go right, and not so much since early entry started, but it used to be you get there right at rope drop. If you went there first, it was also chaotic because the ropes weren't set up because they didn't know how long the line would be and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's pretty chaotic during those first few, both after the fireworks and in the morning. Okay, so let's talk about other strategies that you may think are not the best. I think rope drop is the majority of them, but is there another one that you disagree with? I have one that I now disagree with that I used to not,
Okay.
and that has to do with fireworks. And so I used to be like I don't watch fireworks often. I'm gonna be like completely clear about that because I don't like parking out to wait for a spot, and I still agree with that, but I did this, and what's really funny is I did this for a projections only show while we were there last trip. Um, I did park out about 45 minutes to an hour early for the Wondrous Journey ones, and so that I could have a castle view. I found a spot that wasn't right in front of the castle. It was on the other side of this Walt statue, and it was great and amazing, but I do think sometimes that's worth it if it's something you really want to see, to camp out for a spot for a fireworks show. But I do suggest that you make a plan around that. Have blankets, have things to spread out, take turns who's gonna sit there. I wouldn't try and park out if it was just me by myself, because then you leave, no one's there for your hold your spot. So it's one that I somewhat agree with and somewhat disagree with, I guess I would say. It's told a lot, and then there's also a lot of people say, "Yes, camp out," and then you get a lot of the people saying, "Oh, if you just come 15 minutes before, you can get on Main Street, in the middle of Main Street," and you can, but I will say, I don't think it's the same as having that great castle view when you're in the middle of Main Street because, yeah, you can see the castle, but it's tiny, and you won't be able to see very well.
So I'm curious, how you felt the crowd level was for camping out in a prime location for projections only.
The crowds at the castle were really, really still crowded, like right in front of the castle. There were people camping out 2.5 to 3 hours before. Now, Disney says their policy is no more than 2 hours before, but there were people filled in the circular area in front of the castle 2.5 hours before at least. And it was pretty packed. It wasn't bad. Like I said, I got there 45 minutes to an hour before, and we basically walked up to where the walkway is that goes directly to the Walt and Mickey statue. And we just stepped off a little bit to the side where the trash cans were and had a great view. No one in front of us because we'd stepped off just a little to those trash cans at that spot. And it was good, but yeah, it was still decently crowded. And this was beginning of May. The crowds during the day were not that bad. So I was a little shocked at how many people were there just for projections on a day that wasn't super crowded.
A weeknight too.
Oh, yeah, it was a weeknight. That's why there were no fireworks.
Good point. Yeah. So during non-peak season, fireworks are limited to Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. Yeah. Fireworks and projection strategy is all across the board. So I would say do what's comfortable for you, and what your tolerance is for being packed in, and your tolerance is for waiting. And maybe you have a big group where you have people that don't mind and they're like, hey, you know what? I need a break. I want to sit here for a while and we can trade off. Or maybe you want something that's going to be an easy exit, and that will be Main Street is going to be your best bet. There's so many different options, and it really depends on you. And I think that's one of the main things with park strategies is that sometimes people will say a park strategy and it is like they take it to the grave, right? Like this is how it's done. But in reality, there's many ways that you can do it. And thank goodness, because if we were all following the same strategy, it would no longer be good.
Exactly. And especially if you talk about, how many days you're going to be there, what park you're trying to rope drop, like there's a lot of different things. And one of the other reasons that we suggest always going a minimum of 3 days is you can try out the different strategies throughout, and then you don't feel like you wasted a day if a strategy doesn't work out perfectly, because you've now, try those strategies that you're thinking about the first day, and then you adjust the next day. It's a great way to still be able to test out those different strategies without having so much pressure.
Yes. And we did talk about 5th day free. So a minimum of 3 days is our suggestion. But right now our partners do have 5th day free tickets. You can call 855-GETAWAY and ask for the Disneyland with Kids exclusive pricing. Now that's going to work for any tickets 2 days or longer. You're going to get the best Disneyland ticket pricing that you can get. And there is also 5th day free tickets.
Yes. And if you don't want to talk to someone, we do have a link that will redirect you right to our specific link that has our exclusive pricing. And that is disneylandwithkids.info/book. And again, they have discounts with exclusive pricing for our readers and followers and group members on 2-day and longer tickets. So even if 2-day tickets are like the best you can do as far as how many days you can go, like you can't go 3 days for whatever reason, they have discount 2-day tickets. Also, you can pre-purchase Genie Plus, which is one of my must-do strategies for anyone going to Disneyland that wants to really get in those rides that have it. Like if you look at the rides with Genie, with Lightning Lane, and you're like, no, I don't want to do those, maybe not, but definitely pre-purchase it if you think you might use it, because that locks in the price. Whereas if you purchase it every day as you walk into the park, the pricing's dynamic and it can change.
Ever since we've had Genie Plus, I've bought it every time. I would say there's maybe like a couple times where I've gone in the parks just for a few hours and haven't purchased it. But anytime, yeah, it's like 99% of the time I purchase it.
Yeah. That is all we have for you today. If you enjoyed the podcast, we hope you'll subscribe to it on your favorite podcast listening station or on YouTube, wherever you like to listen. And we will see you real soon.